All right. Welcome to today's AMA session with KrypToon, and we have our guest Blocksquare in the house. Hello, Blocksquare.
Hello, hi. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, man? Hope you had a good night rest.
Yeah, it's all fine. Good weekend behind us. Oh, new week.
All right. So I guess we can just kickstart the AMA ASAP.
Sure thing.
All right, let's go. Tell us about you and your team members. Introduce
Sure
yourself and
thing.
tell us about your team. Yeah.
Sure thing. Sure thing. So first of all, thank you everyone who joining. I see there's quite a lot of people interested in the subject. My name is Denis Petrovcic. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blocksquare. Um, Blocksquare is currently a team of around 35 people between dev, marketing, and business development. We're a company started back in 2018, 2017, actually, where we saw that real estate will be tokenized and there needs to be frameworks in place and infrastructure in place so that any real estate company can easily um, jump on the tokenization bandwagon when things start moving forward. But we're seeing in the last couple of years, interest in real world assets being brought on chain, picking up quite fast. There's a lot of things happening in the space, and Blocksquare is positioned to essentially bring real estate assets in a compliant way through tokenization to Web3. We've currently have just shy of 20 marketplace operators in different, so this is independent companies that use our infrastructure to run their own marketplaces where they can offer tokenized real estate to their investor base. In total, there's just above 200 million worth of real estate assets on our infrastructure so far. And yeah, happy to be here and discuss the topic.
All right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, so moving on as part of the introductions, could you tell us about Block Square?
Sure. So, like I said, Blocksquare, we started it back in 2017. It's three co-founders besides me, Victor, the CTO, and Peter, Chief Compliance Officer. Um, it was around 2016, 2017 when we started thinking of a way where, you know, people could gain access to real estate assets through something that, there was no term tokenization at the time, but, through issuance of tokens and how would you legally bind them to a real estate asset. And that kind of idea then started maturing more and more. Um, and I had my first investment into a real estate assets outside of my primary residence at that time, and at the same moment, kind of really starting to dig into Ethereum as an ecosystem and smart contracts and so forth. And we were kind of discussing this idea of what this would create, even if there's a future where this can actually exist. So at that time, there was a lot of skepticism around it. I think today, definitely, tokenization is something that's there to stay. So it's not a question of if anymore, but more a question, when this becomes mainstream. And real estate is the largest asset class in the world, and it's also at the same time one of the most inaccessible asset classes there are. And most people around the world will never be able to own real estate. And tokenization can essentially change this, and it can bring real estate assets into the hands of everyone who has an internet connection. And I think this is very powerful as a concept because it solves so many wealth preservation and wealth retention challenges that our society has currently. And obviously, you need infrastructure, you need products, you need tools, and legal models, frameworks that can do that, that can achieve that tokenization in a compliant manner, so that regulators, are happy with it. In simple terms, that makes legal sense in a way where the holder of tokens has the same protection as any traditional real estate investment model on the market that doesn't involve tokenization. So it needs to have the same safety measures, so that the yield that real estate as an asset class can offer to investors, which is somewhere between, the 5% on single unit rentals, to 25% on real estate developments. And this is yield that's there, and now it can be available for people in Web3 too.
All right. All right. Wow, that's some vast knowledge there, man. 2017 it's quite a while. All right. So moving on to the main questions. So how does Blocksquare technically bind? How does Blocksquare technically bind on-chain real estate tokens to off-chain legal ownerships?
Okay, I'll jump on the question, but the rooster in the back, where are you based from, by the way? I had a
Okay,
pleasure of talking with somebody, I think they were from Kampala or something, and they explained to me a story about the rooster. And every family should have a rooster at home, and it brings good luck or something like that.
yeah, I stay in Nigeria actually. I stay in Nigeria.
All
So
right,
the rooster is
perfect.
just part of my poultry.
Amazing. Amazing. I think we have quite a nice. You mentioned Nigeria. We have this thing in Blocksquare that's it's called regional hubs, and it's a way for us to kind of really try and promote educational content creation on a local level. Because a lot of times, when it comes to tokenizing real estate, there's certain concepts that people are not familiar with. And so education is very important, whether you come from Web3 or from a traditional finance background, or not even from a finance background, right? Everybody needs to understand how these things play together. And I think in Nigeria, we have also one or two regional hubs, which means this is people who kind of really dig into Blocksquare's infrastructure, what we provide. They register as an ambassador, and then they join forces together. Maybe there's two people or five or whatever, to form a regional hub where they organize events and to educate their communities. And Blocksquare is basically, in a way, sponsoring these events, so that they also have the financial means to create quality events. And so, we have a big audience here from different parts of the world. I think we have 100 ambassadors thus far who have finished the process and registered with us. We have around 7 or 8 regional hubs around the world, from Australia to Nigeria, Europe, and so forth. And there's a lot of room to grow still. This is a fairly new topic, even though we've been working on it since 17, like I said. But anybody who wants to actively get involved, um, you know, uh, try to register as ambassadors of Blocksquare, and maybe join a regional hub, help people organize events, or form your own. Anyways, going back to your question, I think you were asking about how Blocksquare technically binds on-chain real estate tokens to the to the off-chain side. I think that's, if I remember correctly, the question.
Yeah, that's quite the question, man. That's wonderful. Tokenization has
All right.
stay. All right, so
So
my second question will
so
be like,
on-chain.
okay, go ahead.
So yeah. So you were asking on-chain and off-chain. How do we do that, right? And so you have on the off-chain side, what is real estate ownership? On real estate ownership is a bundle of rights that a government then assigns to you because you either purchased it or inherited that property or whatever. And that bundle of rights, you can own it as a natural person, as a person, or you can own it as a company, right? And if you own it as a company, you can assign some of those rights, but as well if you own it as a person. But when you own real estate, you can assign some of these rights. You can retain them or you can transfer them temporarily to other people. For instance, when you sign a lease contract, you're temporarily transferring the right to use that property to somebody else. And in exchange, you receive something, a payment, right? So it creates an economic benefit for you as the title owner. Now, when you transfer it permanently, you're selling the property, which means you're permanently transferring your rights to use it and to change it and to lease it and so forth to another party, a new owner. And that's when you are, permanently transferring those rights. And so if you take those rights, you see that there's this economic benefits that are created for the owner. And what we do is we transfer these economic benefits, these economic rights, and we transfer them and link them to tokens. So each property receives its own token contract, its own token, and every 1,000 tokens, and there can be only 100,000 tokens per property in our infrastructure, represents 1% of these economic benefits that I was discussing about before. And this becomes enforceable in the legal system within the country where the property resides, and it's tokenized. So this transfer, what we do is we use the institute of a corporate resolution, which is a decision by the shareholders of the company that owns the property to do something within the company. Usually that's decisions like changing the general manager or the director of the company, for instance. In this case, the decision is to reassign these economic rights to whoever owns the tokens. So if I own 1,000 tokens, I have 1% of this economic rights. And if I transfer it to you, you all of a sudden have those rights and I lose those rights, right? And it can go granularly because you can own one token, but you can own even less. And so it means if it's always the same amount of tokens and the same legal backbone, essentially it means that the price of the tokens will reflect the price of the property. So you might have one property being worth $100,000, and that would mean that one token is worth around $1, right? But then on the other end, you might have a property that's worth 1 million, which means one token will probably have a market price of around $10, right? And then these tokens determine, how much proportionally of the recurring revenues, if the property is leased out, for instance, go to each holder. And these tokens can be traded, but the binding rights, the legal rights stay there. They're just fractionalized and change hands between different token holders. So that's kind of the essence is this corporate resolution plus a dedicated token contract that are bound together and manage these economic rights.
All right, all right. That's quite an answer. That's quite an answer, and I hope my community is learning very fast. So, the second question, could you tell us about the core product of Blocksquare?
Sure thing. So, Blocksquare provides this white label tokenization infrastructure, and it has several components to it. At its core, there's this tokenization system, which is a set of smart contracts that is, the V1 is basically deployed on Ethereum. And this allows us to create new token contracts for every real estate that is being tokenized. It enables users to register an account within the smart contract system and get whitelisted so that they can access these tokens. There's a KYC process that's done off chain before a user can get access. And so this is the core part. Then on top of it, there's a marketplace platform where it's done in a way so that any company can create its own instance of a marketplace, brand it under their own flag, and basically then use it to list properties that they tokenize and offer them to their own community. And we see that there could be thousands of marketplaces, just like online shops, if you will. A comparison might be just like Shopify offers a white label product for anybody who wants to open up an e-commerce shop. In the same manner, Blocksquare can offer any company the ability to launch a tokenized real estate marketplace in a matter of weeks without doing any, writing any single line of code. Then there's obviously this other product or other side is the management dashboard, an admin panel through which this marketplace operators can operate these marketplaces and distribute revenues and whatnot using it. And then on the side, there's a liquidity engine we call Ocean Point, which connects the whole ecosystem of this dispersed marketplaces into one DeFi liquidity protocol. And that's where essentially BST, which is Blocksquare's token, comes as well into play. And it's used to incentivize liquidity provisioning on one end, but it as well, because we're a software provider, BST as well enables companies to run on our infrastructure at discounted prices, which means that BST really as well captures in its utility the software license that Blocksquare kind of creates and produces. And so there's this mechanism that's kind of tying all the the whole product suite together.
All right, all right, all right. That's quite amazing. Okay, the third question: what concrete value accrual mechanism exists for BST holders beyond governance, signaling, and how does staking BST or holding SBST translate into protocol level revenue, and what time horizon? Did you get that?
Yeah, so you were asking about BST, how it works, not just in governance of the protocol, but beyond it. So I mentioned earlier that we have Ocean Point, which is this liquidity engine that we're building to, bring the secondary market liquidity to all these marketplaces, this ecosystem that we've created. And BST essentially is driven by two things. Like I mentioned earlier, the software licensing is one part. There's on Ocean Point, we also have this launchpad where new project can raise stake BST from our community to be able to launch their new marketplaces. So that's tying the software licensing in together. On the other end, there's all these real estate assets that are being tokenized for various reasons. And then when these real estate assets actually start to search for liquidity and tokens are being sold to other investors, what happens is that this properties generate revenue, and we have a staking mechanism built into Ocean Point where any property or any owner of property tokens can boost their returns by staking these real estate assets or these real estate tokens. And what they do when they decide to stake is they are directing the regular revenues that these assets are producing um, onto the Ocean Point protocol. And the stablecoin revenues are then being accrued, and periodically there's buyback and burn transactions on BST. So if you imagine that, there could be potentially an unlimited amount of real estate tokens available on the market, that could potentially generate an unlimited amount of revenues, because there's no limits to how much you can tokenize, right? The only limits are in the demand side. Is there demand for people buying real estate? And you drive those revenues onto a fixed supply asset like BST, that can become a very interesting tokenomics model. That creates scarcity in a fixed supply token. Not sure if it's just me or um, is it just me that can't hear the host, or can somebody in the audience maybe wave or do something if you hear me, but all right. Seems that everybody can hear me, but you can't hear the organizer, I guess. So let's say that people can hear me, I would assume, and that the host has some connectivity issues. Maybe, maybe they need to go and um, catch the rooster in the backyard. Um, but let's try and continue the conversation. I'll try to manage it somehow myself, and then hopefully everybody who's listening in can extract some value out of it. Unfortunately, I do not have any host controls, so I'd love to invite somebody from the audience up here for a conversation, but I can't. I can't. Okay, I'm getting here. Okay, now I'm a co-host. So, anybody who wants to join me in this discussion here, please tap request to speak, and I'll try to get some people up. All right. Okay. Milo, I think we have somebody here. Please bear with me. Can you hear me? You're back. All right. Perfect.
Sorry about that.
What
All right, can we
happened?
go on? I think my
Yeah,
connection went
sure.
bad. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We were wondering. We were wondering, and then I got co-hosting rights, and then I started asking if somebody wants to come up on stage and
Okay.
share it with me, and then we
All
have
right.
already
Maybe
30
maybe
requests now.
maybe after the question and answer, that we can pick the community.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah.
All right. So the fourth question, it says that users can launch their real estate investment portals without coding. Can you walk us through how they can do that?
All right, sure. So, um, imagine you wanted to open up an online shop, right? Today, what would you do? Would you go and hire developers and have them code your online shop? Or would you instead go to a white label provider like Shopify or WooCommerce or similar? Most probably you would pick the second choice. Why? Because you can start with $100 per month or something and, build, just populate the shop yourself and that's it. You don't need to worry about the infrastructure in the back. You don't need to worry about the coding, the maintenance and all of it, right? Because all of that makes it very expensive. And when you translate this into investing in real estate, if I'm running a marketplace that I need to maintain myself, I need to hire a developer team and all of that, that adds up costs. And those costs, somebody needs to pay for them. And in the end, who's going to pay for them is the investors who are going to be buying this real estate tokens. They will need to cover for the ongoing costs of a marketplace that does everything themselves. Now with Blocksquare, these costs are basically split across a multitude of marketplaces. So if in the future we could see a future where 500 marketplaces run in different parts of the world on Blocksquare, or maybe 1,000, or maybe even more, right? It means that the cost of running all this increases, but just slightly, while the distribution of cost is borne by 500 different companies, and it becomes cheaper and cheaper to operate your marketplace. And so in this way, we see that with the growth of real estate tokenization, it's going to be much more common for companies to just utilize an infrastructure provider like Blocksquare versus building their own. Currently in the market, we're seeing a bit of both, right? But when we talk with companies that have mostly experience in real estate, and not in tech development so much, what they want is a reliable partner that will, fix everything for them and they can really focus on the business. And essentially, that's what we do. We connect with companies who don't want to hire developers, who don't want to maintain their own systems. They want to use something that has been proven on the market that it works. It has all the functionalities that they need, and they can focus on the business. And it allows them to go on the market much faster, Like I said, our standard solution, couple weeks, bam, you are live. If you want to have a more customized enterprise grade deal with maybe a custom deployment on a separate blockchain or whatnot, those timelines obviously can become longer as the complexity of the product increases, and there's customization that needs to be done as well. But we have been discussing with larger enterprises as well of this kind of solutions. So, usually what our clients do at the current level is they use our standard product mostly because it's convenient and it gives them a very, very short time to market. Anyone who is thinking about opening up a tokenized marketplace for real estate assets in their region, um, I would say, just get in touch to us with the Blocksquare.io. There's a send inquiry button there. Fill out the form, and somebody from our sales team will jump on a call with you. And that's how we usually start the discussion. And we'll help you, understand the whole product line, see what fits best for your needs, and we take it from there.
All right, so thank you so much. And finally, for the last question from my end before we move to the community, could you give us a list of partners and collaborations you have that has been keeping you and the ones you're having to come?
All right. Well, collaboration. Well, there's different routes of collaborations we do. We collaborate with primarily, with asset owners, property owners, companies that have portfolios of real estate and they want to tokenize them. And so that's collaborations we have. Then we have, of course, the marketplace operators who would like to operate independently their own marketplaces and need infrastructure to do so. Sometimes it might be the one and the same as with the first category, asset owners, and sometimes not, because sometimes the asset owners, they just don't have the focus to operate their own marketplace, but they would rather just list on a marketplace like Ocean Point, for instance, which is also kind of an independent marketplace of its own. And then obviously we have partnerships in the Web3 space, where some partnerships are based on providing a piece of infrastructure. Like, we have now worked with lately, we're working with a couple of really, really big Web3 companies to bring new features to our infrastructure, like account abstraction is coming up. And we're going to be migrating to a different DEX aggregator on the back. There's a lot of things happening around, a lot of different partnerships as well in the Web3 space. Obviously, real estate tokenization is something new. There's L1s and L2s very interested in the topic. Most of them appreciate us not just being the infrastructure provider, but what we can provide to this ecosystem is as well a fresh source of supply of real estate assets. As I said, we have tokenized thus far 200 million worth of real estate assets. We have partnerships with property owners, asset managers who hold billions of real estate assets. And the only question is, where to drive this asset supply to. I think one of the interesting parts when you're looking at the market is the last couple of years, DeFi yields have been amazing. You could lend your stable coins to a protocol and earn 7, 8, 10%, maybe even more APY on a very liquid asset. And real estate tokenization was not so interesting maybe during those times because the yield is more or less the same, but what you hold is far less liquid. Even tokenized real estate doesn't have that liquidity of stablecoins, of course, right? But now times are changing, and we see a lot of articles and question marks from various, key opinion leaders, and saying, well, where is this going? The yields that this DeFi environments have provided that were juiced up with various tokens are drying up. And, where will liquidity go? Because DeFi doesn't offer that same opportunity it did a couple years back or in the past few years. My bet is that real world assets are definitely going to attract a lot of that liquidity, and yields are going to stabilize to something normal, which means that real estate, from a risk liquidity perspective, becomes something very interesting, because it's going to be hard to find deals where there could be asset appreciation, but as well 7 to 9% returns from revenue streams, so from cash flow. And real estate is an asset class that cash flows, as opposed to, I don't know, gold or most stocks that don't pay out any dividends, but it's just a gamble and a bet. Will the price go up or down? With real estate, the game is a bit different. And I think that the brightest days of tokenized real estate are still ahead. If you look at the composition of real world assets in total market cap, you see that real estate is a very thin layer. Not much has been brought on chain yet. But it is, like I said, the biggest asset class in the world. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see where this grows.
All right, all right. That's all the question from my end. And wow, you've said quite a lot, and I feel great that my community is learning. And so with that, we come to the end of the first segment. Moving on to the second segment, it's the community section, where we have quite a number of persons. But since I am not a co-host, I cannot pick anybody. So you will do the picking. So I think we have our first speaker, Milo. And so Milo, please go ahead and ask your question. Make sure you're following Blocksquare and KrypToon. If not, there will be no rewards for you. So please do make sure you follow, retweet, and like the pinned post and also the AMA post before you ask your question. All right, Milo, go ahead.
All right, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, we
you are
can hear you
quite
well.
audible.
All right, my question to Blocksquare is, since Blocksquare focuses on like compliance-ready tokenization, how do you guys balance flexibility for global developers with strict regulatory requirements that like vary by jurisdiction? Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it. It's a good question. I mean, like I said, what we try to bring to the market is regulatory frameworks or legal frameworks that can really be applicable in most jurisdictions. That doesn't mean they are applicable in all jurisdictions, and sometimes there's some localization that's required. But as I said, the core essence of tokenizing a real estate asset, according to our tokenization framework, is the corporate resolution. And so in any jurisdiction where a legal entity can execute a corporate resolution, theoretically, tokenizing the real estate asset is possible. Then there's a second measure that we have, which is securing the tokens with a charge on the title. And that one is a bit more tricky, but it gives certain protections to token holders that are not achieved with only the corporate resolution. So that part is something where we assess it's possible to implement in about 85 to 90% of jurisdictions. But there's still, every 10th jurisdiction where this is not possible to be done, because maybe it's only reserved to licensed financial institutions like banks to be able to operate in that market and secure their liabilities with a charge on a real estate title. And so, but as we see it, it is something that is possible in most jurisdictions, like I said, and I think that's the beauty of this tokenization model. And in Europe, it's regulated under MiCA regulation, which is the Europe's regulation for crypto assets, as opposed to the securities regulation, which is MiFID II in Europe. And I think that makes it very interesting as well, because it can really, go and live within DeFi as an ecosystem, as opposed to tokenized securities, which are very, strictly regulated, and it's very hard for them to actually find any space in Web3 as we understand it.
All right, that's an amazing question from Milo. And to the final contestant, or participant rather, we have Agent Vesper. Please do ask your question to the Blocksquare team.
Hello, good day. I'm audible.
You are quite
Hello.
audible.
All right, thank you so much. My question is, how strong is your team? Many projects start with good impression and later abandon the project. What makes your project different from others?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we've changed our team, or some team members joined, some team members went away. I mean, we're a project that started back in 17, so it's quite some time we've been around. The core team is still there, and it works day in, day out. I'm there from day one, and have been so far, which is now 7 years. And I think there's the core management team is there, and obviously you might have changes in the development team, you might changes in the sales team, in the marketing team, but the core is there. And I think the main reason why that's true so far is that real estate tokenization, as its potential, has not been realized yet. It's not something that we've jumped on an NFT craze, let's say, like a trend that might go away in 3 months or 6 months, and then it might never come back. Real estate tokenization, it just keeps on building up, and we're at the very, very initial stages, because the data on chain shows that not much has been tokenized yet in terms of value versus everything else. So the potential is immense. And I think that potential makes you wonder and say, do I stop believing in what I started preaching, or do I just need to just continue grinding? And essentially, we realized that we need to continue grinding because the timing has not come yet. It's not there yet, but it's very close. You can feel it because you're working in this field for such a long time, and you can feel that things are changing. You can feel that this is being adopted, and there's just one moment in time, something's going to snap and happen, and everything you've done so far is going to pay off.
All right. Thank you, Wanda. Thank you for this answer, and I wish you good
All
luck to your
right.
project.
All right, Agent Vesper, thank you so much for your question. And so with that, we've come to the end of our session today with the Blocksquare team. So do you have any final words for the community?
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did as well. If you are interested in tokenized real estate, I think we're a great source of information. We have a lot of knowledge that's openly available in our documentation, online, on our websites, in our blogs, in our community as well. There's events being organized around the world by regional hubs. There's ambassadors who you can get in touch with on a local level. And I think understanding how real estate value can be transmitted on chain, it's a big opportunity, and it's a huge opportunity that that should not be missed, I think. because it's not like one of those moments where you learn about something and you realize that, you're too late to the game, but you are early on this game, and this game is not going to stop ever. It's just going to grow, and it's going to happen 100%.
All right, you heard the man. If you want to know more about them, go to the community on Telegram and also follow them on Twitter. Ask questions, get into their DMs and ask questions. Tokenization is important, and for an RWA, it is very, very important. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much to every participant and also to the community. Thank you, KrypToon, for making this available. And with that, we would call it a day. Thank you so much.